After about 5 years of reading different self-help books, what I've come to realize is that one of the key common messages that you will find amongst almost all of them, whether you're reading Maxwell Maltz, Neville Goddard, Frederick Dodson, James Clear, Joe Dispenza, Peter Ralston, or even someone who has more of a psychologist's background like Gabor Mate, one of the main themes across all of their writings, across all of those self-help books that you might find from them, amongst others, is that self-image matters. Self-concept is very important.
Self-concept is very, very important.
And probably a lot more than you might think it is. Now, a lot of these self-help books offer different very practical methods for changing what your life looks like, effectively changing who you are and what you are capable of. But across all those different methods, a commonality is that you need to be able to authentically believe that you are someone who is capable of making these changes in your life. And no matter how many books you read, no matter how many things you try, if deep down you believe that you can't make a change and that your life is destined to be the past on repeat, then no changes are going to take place. And you might have struggled with that a little bit already. I know this is something that a lot of people struggle with, is in the face of trying to make change. No matter what they do, what tends to happen is they tend to relive the same old patterns, and their life simply looks like the past on a loop. So there's a very good reason that every self-help book addresses the fact that your self-concept needs to change. In some way, you need to relate to yourself differently in a way where you start to believe you are someone who is capable of making meaningful, lasting, impactful change in your life. Now, as I said, the methods on how to do so all have some variance depending on what book you're reading. The teachings are all a little bit different. It's simply a commonality amongst them all that you need to make a shift into someone who believes that you can make change. Your self-concept needs to be in alignment with changing your life for the better, or being able to change your life for the better. Now, I'll give you some examples of some of these methods that are spoken about in different books. Now, James Clear's Atomic Habits talks about reverse engineering your future self. So you have this idealized image of yourself, who you want to be, and then you adopt that belief about yourself. Now, that's easier said than done, and this is where the actual work comes in. You begin to reinforce the type of person that you're telling yourself you now are by reverse engineering what that person would do and starting to build little habits around what that person does. So if you're someone who simply struggles with maybe clarity, maybe productivity, I highly recommend Atomic Habits. You can start with watching this video here. It's the 5 biggest lessons I learned from reading that book. It's a very valuable resource. I think the video will give you a nice introduction into some of the meat and potatoes behind that writing. So be sure to go watch that later. In the book Becoming Supernatural and Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza, he speaks about utilizing the power of meditation and visualization to shift your internal state and get your nervous system into a place of parasympathetic activity, which is more calm rather than fight or flight, breaking the pattern of being stuck in a stressful internal environment in your body, which is also a very effective way to change your self-concept. If you go from constantly being in a stressful state all the time to now becoming more relaxed and being someone who practices meditation and visualization, this is going to be a very effective way to change your self-image and start to believe you are someone who can make meaningful change, because you already have that little data point of proof that you're capable of doing so. Peter Ralston's work takes a more transcendent view of self, and if you're into deep spiritual work, if you're into non-duality and enlightenment work, he might be more up your alley for seeing through the illusion of a notion of self at all and really being able to relate to all your problems very, very differently. Very powerful writings from Peter Ralston. I'd caution you that his work is not for the faint of heart. We're talking a complete recontextualization of all of reality if you want to go the Peter Ralston way. Now, while that comes with the biggest warning, it's also potentially the most effective, in my opinion, when you recontextualize all of reality and see through the illusion of self. All self-imposed limitations also tend to fade away because you recognize that your entire self-notion is simply a story, simply a narrative. Bottom line is that when you change your self-image, when you change the way you see yourself, the way you relate to yourself, everything changes about what you think is possible for yourself, what you're capable of, and the life that you can create. And this is a commonality amongst almost every self-help book I would be willing to bet that you can ever read. It has been, at least in part, in every self-help book that I've ever read. So that is an insight that I had after reading another chapter about self-concept in a book and recognizing that this is a theme that is so important. I know it for myself because of how it's changed my life and how I've applied these teachings, but I also just recognized it's literally in every self-help book I've ever read, at least in part. And that's for a very good reason. It's because it is the truth. It is so powerful to change your self-concept. And how you want to do that is up to you. There's a bunch of different methods, some of which I already spoke of. I think some of the most pragmatic ways might be in James Clear's Atomic Habits. There's a reason that that book exploded in popularity. And the teachings are very simple, very easy to apply. So I would probably start there. If you're someone who is struggling with chronic illness and you want to change your belief about your life and what can happen for you, I recommend Joe Dispenza. And if you're someone who struggles with addiction, I recommend Gabor Mate. In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts is a good book for addiction by Gabor Mate. When the Body Says No is also a good book about being addicted to stress. So if you struggle with chronic stress, I recommend that, as well as Joe Dispenza's works are also very good for chronic stress and being able to shift into a place where that is no longer the case for your life. Honestly, no matter who you are, I recommend all three authors, very powerful. As I said, if you want to go very deep, you can dive into Peter Ralston's work as well, but be prepared to shift your entire context of reality. Reading is a very powerful way to learn, but make sure you are applying teachings as well. Don't just read through a book and say, oh, well, nothing happened, I read it. Make sure you're actually applying what is being taught through these books if you want to see meaningful change. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. If you want to schedule a free one-on-one coaching call with me, there is a booking link in the description down below, so be sure to take advantage of that. And there's also a link for a free life audit workbook, which is also a very powerful resource, so be sure to claim that as well. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more content. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.